So this is a introduction to quantitative and qualitative research methods in education with subtitle, A Guide for K through 12 Teachers to Conduct Ethical and Effective Research. I will save this and put it in a LibGuide that you can look at later, and I also send it to Dr. Miller, so you will have it. If you didn't put your name in the chat, please sign your name in the chat for attendance, so I can send that to her. Okay, so today a brief overview are the objectives are to understand the difference between quantitative and qualitative research methods, to learn data collection techniques for both methods, to review ethical practices in research, and to design and conduct research projects, including science fair inquiries. So to begin, what is quantitative research? And I'm sure you've probably heard quantitative and qualitative, and it can sometimes be confusing because sometimes some methods actually go both ways. But basically, quantitative research focuses on numerical data and statistical analysis. That's the main focus of quantitative research. It's often used to measure variables such as in doing school research, test scores, attendance, and performance, things that can be numerically put into a research project and analyzed. Common data collection tools in quantitative research are surveys, which collect data through structured questionnaires, and test scores, which analyze performance metrics such as grades or standardized tests. So, surveys and test scores, and these are pretty much the standards that are used in quantitative research, especially in school research or research and education. So surveys are generally in quantitative structured questions or closed-end questions. So closed-end questions are questions where you can ask true or false, multiple choice. Trying to think of something else. Anything that has a yes or no. Yeah, that's another one. Yes or no, true or false, multiple choice. They would not be open-ended that has someone to write how they feel about something or make a comment or ask a question. The survey should be clear, concise, and unbiased. Your surveys, they can be administered in person, online, or by phone. And there's quite a few tools out there that you can use. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But generally, these are different ways you can do your surveys. An example of a survey, a Likert scale, which is where you pick between, say, 5 choices. Something you ask a question and you say, is it definitely, almost, or not at all? Or, do you like it very much, a little bit, or not at all? That's the Likert scale. Then, of course, multiple choice and rating scales, like rate something from 1 to 10, where it falls, whether you like it or whatever. On test scores focus on assessing learning outcomes. They look for trends or differences in performance. And an example would be state testing data, quiz scores, or pre or post assessments. And sometimes you will find these already within state records or federal publications that are have been put out that you can actually use the scores that have already been done for your analysis. So some of the data collection and quantitative research data collection needs. For surveys, a representative sample of participants, whether it's teachers, students, whatever, for generalization. For test scores, you need accurate measurement tools, consistent grading, reliable testing conditions. You need to consider the sample size and how to ensure statistical significance. So some of the tools that you can use: SPSS. Has anyone used SPSS before? Anyone?
No.
No.
All right. What about Qualtrics? Have you used Qualtrics for analyzing statistics? Anyone?
I
I've
think
responded.
Okay. Um, Survey Monkey. Anyone use Survey Monkey?
Yeah, I have before.
but it sounds familiar, but I don't think I've ever used
Yeah, Survey Monkey's been around for a while, and you can just do a survey. I think it was at one time free. I don't know if it's still free, but yeah, you could create your own survey, and then it did its own analysis. It wasn't like real, like a research type, if you were doing like a dissertation or something, but it was good if you just wanted to get some basic information, numerical information on a different subject or topic or whatever. And then there's Google Forms, which you can use. Google has a wide range of different products that you can use to do different types of things, and Google Forms is one of them. You can also, Excel is a great resource for doing. It has, and a lot of people don't realize, other than the basics of Excel, it does have a statistical analysis section that you can use. In vivo is another one. Now, in vivo is used for qualitative as well, because it shows trends, and you can do numerical trends, and you can also do qualitative trends, looking at different topics. So that's good. And then there's Taboo and Python, which are, if you do any programming, then that's a couple of the programming tools that are out there. And that's something to think about, whether when you are trying to decide how you want to do your research, is to decide what tools you want to use to analyze it. So some of the terminology that would be you would try to get kind of familiar with, and I don't know if you've taken statistics before. If you have, then this is probably all familiar to you. But just in case, I'm just going to go over some of these different terms. So a variable would be a characteristic or attribute that you want to measure. An independent variable would be the variable manipulated by the researcher to observe its effect on another variable. And then the dependent variable would be the variable that is being measured to see how it is affected by the independent variable. Then another term, correlation, you want to find out how something reacts to something else. You want to find a correlation of that. So it's a statistical relationship between two variables indicating how they change together. If one does this, then the other one is affected and does that. That's a correlation. Causation is a relationship where one variable directly causes a change in another variable. Descriptive statistics, summary measures of data like mean, median, mode, and standard deviation. Hypothesis is a statement that can be tested through research, predicting a relationship between variables. A sample is a subset of a population selected for a study. And then the population would be the entire group of individuals or items that a study aims to generalize to. And when you're filling out, like when you are doing your research and you have to do a I or B or something, then these are some things that it will ask you questions about. What is your sample population size? What is the entire population? So, what is your hypothesis? These are some things. So, when to use quantitative methods? So, quantitative methods and research are best used when you want to test a specific hypothesis, measure relationships between variables, identify trends or patterns within a large population. When you need to produce statistically reliable results, typically by collecting numerical data that can be analyzed using statistical techniques to draw conclusions and make predictions. Essentially, when you need to answer questions about how much, how many, or how often. So, testing a hypothesis. When you have a clear theory or question that can be formulated in a testable hypothesis, quantitative research allows you to gather data to support or refute it. So, if you have a theory that I'm trying to think of an example. Well, my dissertation was on library anxiety in first year students. And a hypothesis that I had was that if first year students were given interactive applications like computer, like say a tour of the library on their that they could look at on their website, that they would not have as much anxiety. So that was my theory, and that was my hypothesis that I wanted to test with a group using students. So that's an example of when you would use, or when you could use, quantitative methods. If you want to establish cause and effect relationships, if you want to determine whether one variable directly influences another, quantitative methods are well suited to analyze correlations and potential causal links. When you want to generalize results to a larger population, when you need to draw conclusions about a broader group based on a representative sample, quantitative research with statistical analysis enables generalization. Going back to my study, so I could not do a study of every student, but I could do a generalization that if I have 100 students and 100 students say show using the Likert scale that they have less anxiety when they use the mobile app, then I can make a generalization and say that it's likely that students would have less anxiety using a mobile app as a tour of the library. So that's an example of the generalization used with quantitative research. When you want to measure trends and patterns, if your research goal was to identify patterns or trends over time or across different groups, quantitative data can be analyzed to reveal these insights. So this is an example of a question that would kind of lean toward doing a quantitative study. So the question, how does the average income level correlate with the crime rate in different neighborhoods? So just thinking about this, what do you think, why this would be a good question to use for quantitative? Anyone? I'm going to keep asking questions. So,
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
okay, so this question How does the average income level correlate with the crime rate in different neighborhoods? Why do you think that would be good to do as a quantitative study?
I would say maybe because there's actual like data you can collect from past incidents and
Yeah,
whatnot.
yeah, there's data, it's statistical data. You have data, you can look at the income level of a group, you can look at the crime rate of a neighborhood, and you can do a correlation. So correlation is a determinant, the term, one of the terms in quantitative, and then the fact that you're looking at actual numbers and large groups, because if you're only looking at, say, one person and you say, how does the average income level correlate with the crime rate in different neighborhoods, that's not going to give you an answer. You're going to have to look at information on large data from different neighborhoods and different income levels. So that's what makes it a good quantitative study. And that the next question was the impact of a new marketing campaign on sales figures. Would be a good quantitative study because you can do a survey and see how a person reacted to the campaign, or see how several people reacted to the campaign. Now, you could also, if you wanted to do a quantitative study, you could do, say, a focus group or observation and have people to say, oh, I felt this was, I didn't like it, or I liked it, or whatever, to get deeper information. But that would not probably give you the information on the impact of the marketing campaign in a numerical way. So some key points to remember when choosing quantitative research question: focus on measurable variables. The question should clearly identify variables that can be measured numerically, and it should have the ability to analyze statistically. That is probably one of the most important. The question should be structured so that statistical analysis can be applied to the data. Does anyone have any questions? Let me see. So far on quantitative?
No.
No,
Okay.
ma'am.
Well, we're going through this pretty quick. I thought it would be longer, so this is good. So what is qualitative research? Qualitative research focuses on exploring experiences, perspectives, and meanings. The data is non-numerical and analyzed for themes or patterns. Common data collections tools in qualitative research, or interviews with open-ended questions, the quantitative was closed-end, to explore individual experiences and perceptions, and observations, interviews, and observations, watching and recording behavior in natural settings. These are those tools are common, but there's other tools that you can use for qualitative. There is studies where you go into a population, you actually live in that population, and it's pretty much like observation, but observation means you are outside looking in. So say you could be watching a playground group of children, and in the other type of qualitative, when you are part of it, you are actually playing with the kids or whatever. And that would be the different. But these are pretty much very common for qualitative research, the interviews and the observation. So types of interview: there's the structured interview where you have a fixed set of questions. There's the semi-structured interview, which has some flexibility in questions. You may ask something and then the answer you don't get the answer that you actually want, so you add some more to that question. You could have unstructured interview, which are informal conversational approaches. So why use interviews to explore deeper insight into the participants' thoughts, feelings, and motivations. And it's useful for understanding the why behind behaviors and attitudes. So some data collection and qualitative research. For interviews, the questions should be clear and open-ended. You should have an appropriate sample size and a comfortable environment for participants. So if you're doing a face-to-face interview, you can control pretty much all of those things. If you are doing a interview that, say, is a Zoom interview, you can't control the environment the person is in, but you can do as much as you can to make it appropriate for the person. For the sample size, you should have the size that you feel is needed to answer your question. So if you have a question that you feel one person can answer, then it's okay to do a one case study with one subject. But if you find that if you're doing a study that requires you to have more to answer the question, then you need to have more. So say you were doing a study on, I just talked to a student yesterday. She was doing a study on recidivism, and she wanted to look at a case study of one person. And that's fine, because she could get a lot of really deep information just from one person, from their experience. It's not generalizable, but it is still really good information. So some key considerations: ensure participants feel safe and valued in sharing their experiences. Provide clear instructions on what to expect during data collection. And some tools that you can use for this: NVivo, MaxQDA, Excel, and Qualtrics. And the reason I put these are in NVivo, what it does is you are using qualitative information. So say you have 5 sentences where the person has said throughout their interview that we'll just make it simple. We'll just say they hate ice cream. And so you are just you're doing a study on the different kinds of ice cream for your company, your advertising firm or whatever. And they say they hate ice cream, but if it's mixed with, say, as a milkshake, they like it. So you have 5 people to say they hate it. You have 2 that say if it's mixed. Then you can do a trend, and you put those sentences in, and it will run the trend, and it will pick out milkshake. It will pick out ice cream. It'll pick out hate. So those are, it's not numerical, but it makes it the trend. So it makes it easier for you to say, this is what is going on. This is the why of, why this campaign won't work or whatever. So that's an example of how NVivo works. And MaxQDA is pretty much the same. Excel, it's more you have to do manually. So you would have to put all that in, and then try to find the trends within the data. And Qualtrics is pretty good as well, because you can search by different topics. You can put it in different ways. That, I guess, would be another presentation or something on how to use these types of tools. Okay, when to use qualitative methods. Qualitative research is best used when you want to deeply understand people's experiences, motivations, and perspectives on a topic, especially when the subject is complex or not well studied, allowing you to explore nuances and develop new insights rather than simply confirming existing hypotheses. This often involves gathering rich, detailed data through methods like interviews, focus groups, or observations. So continuing on that line of using qualitative methods, when you want to explore a new concept or phenomenon, when you're trying to understand something that can't be solved numerically, you would want to use the qualitative. When you want to uncover underlying reasons and motivations, you want to delve into why people think or behave in a certain way, not looking at just the surface level data that you might get in quantitative studies. When you want to develop a research question, you can do a qualitative study to help going forward with a larger study. Say you want to do a case study, and then from that case study, you want to do a larger study to make it more generalized, then you can do that. Understanding complex social situations when analyzing interactions within a group or community where context is crucial. Gathering detailed feedback on products or services to gain in-depth user experiences and identify areas for improvement. This is frequently done for in sales, having focus groups to get answers on what they like or don't like. We get it all the time. I mean, you get these phone calls on, you know, have you watched this TV show or the Nielsen report and all of those. That's another example. To gain in-depth user experiences and identify areas for improvement, and also to explore sensitive topics when participants might be hesitant to disclose information in a structured quantitative format. Okay, some questions in qualitative. So this is an example of a question which would lead more toward doing a qualitative study. So the question is, how do recent immigrants experience cultural integration challenges in, I can't see what I have here, in their new community, and what coping mechanisms do they utilize? So why do you think this would be a good qualitative question?
Based on what you were just saying, it really focuses on like personal experience.
Yeah.
There's no really like numerical or statistical aspect. It's really just personal experience or like feelings and yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. If you want to find out something that is like she said, personal, you can't really get it by doing numerical analysis. Just you're not going to get it. So if that's what if you want to really get to the deep meaning of why something is happening or how it's happening then you have to do well, I'm not going to say you have to, but it's better to do the qualitative. So as I've written, this question aims to understand the complex experiences and perspectives of immigrants, exploring the how and why behind their integration challenges, which is best achieved through in-depth qualitative methods like interviews or focus groups. So yeah, there's more, it's not black and white. There's a lot of complex issues that are involved. And if you really want to find out if through doing the research, then you have to delve a little deeper. And so that's what qualitative is good for. Qualitative methods allow researchers to gather rich, detailed data about individual experiences, including emotions, perceptions, and personal narratives, which are crucial for understanding the nuances of cultural integration challenges. And also the exploration of unknown aspects. Since the question is asking about potential coping mechanisms, qualitative research can help discover new themes and insights that may not be readily apparent through quantitative methods. So, as I was talking to the student, one of her questions that she is researching is why do African American the statistics, the quantitative statistics show that within 2 years, 68% of them will return back to prison. And so she wanted to find out, so what is it that makes that happen? And it would be hard to just looking at the data to answer that question. Don't you think that would be kind of hard to answer the question by just looking at numbers? So doing a qualitative might help get to the root of what is causing this, and then maybe doing a quantitative study using that as a theory might give a more generalized, if she wanted to go into another study. That's just an example. Before I go into ethics, I wanted to see if anyone wanted to share their question, and maybe we could look at it and see if you've already decided which type of methodology you want to use, and if you have a reason why. Does anyone want to share? Doesn't have to be the question that you're going to use, but just a question in general, if you want.
I haven't quite decided on a question yet. I just got added to this class, so I haven't quite decided on a question yet. But I think I am leaning more towards qualitative,
Mm-hmm.
just because personally I feel like it's more interesting than just like numbers, statistics,
Yeah.
and whatnot.
Okay. Anyone else? Does everyone, other than this new student, but does everyone have a question? No?
We
Yeah, I
haven't.
have a question lined up.
Okay. Do you mind sharing it?
I might still be a little confused on how qualitative and quantitative work when it's data and not like people.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Basically, I guess like the question that I'm working on for the semester is involving uh, saltwater plants.
Okay.
So I'm not really sure there.
Okay. When you say saltwater plants, are you doing I explain that. What specifically are you looking at with?
Basically, the I guess my topic was MSG, monosodium glutamate,
Okay.
and I read that supposedly it can help substitute salt, and I got the idea to try maybe just putting saltwater plants in water with MSG and seeing if that might, work like to substitute salt just in general.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that sounds like a quantitative study. Um, unless you are going to talk to somebody and have them to try it on their food or something, and then get
Mhm.
their, their perception. Um, But, and then you could do it, actually, you could do a mixed method and do both. But yeah, that's good. Anyone else? I mean, it's okay to just throw something out there. Okay, well, I just want to make sure that I answer all the questions. I don't want to leave and your instructor would not be very happy with me if I did not answer all the questions that are out there. So I want to make sure that I do that. Okay, we're going to move on. And you can, if you want, email me if you have any questions later. That's fine. So the other thing that we are going to talk about is ethics and research. So why ethics matter? They protect participants' rights. They maintain integrity of the research process, ensure validity and reliability of findings, ensure the reputation of the researcher and the institution. This is very important. There's a lot of stuff that has come out recently about plagiarism, and the Harvard professor pretty much lost her job over plagiarism. There's a lot of stuff out there in using AI and other things. I know that the university uses Turnitin to check student papers. And now they have instituted the academic integrity from academic affairs that I think students are required to take that course, which is through the library. So this is really important. I'm the vice chair of the IRB board at PB, and the main thing that we do is to try to protect the participants so that there is no harm in the research that they may become involved in. If you remember back in the early 50s, the Tuskegee syphilis study, where Black men were given syphilis, paid $5 to be in this study, and a lot of them died. And because of that, the government created the Institutional Review Board, that every university that gets federal funds has to have a IRB, because this is a really, really important thing that participants are protected. And what that means too is that when you are doing a study, you want to be as upfront with the participants as possible. There are some studies where you may not be able to give all of the information. And there are studies where you actually can deceive the participant, but you have to provide a way after say the study involves some deception, but then after the study, you have to tell them that they have been deceived. So this keeps it ethical. The other thing is plagiarism. As I mentioned, plagiarism, the university uses Turnitin to try and detect plagiarism. It's very difficult. A lot of plagiarism is accidental, which is one of the types of plagiarism. And it usually just comes from either not understanding how to cite something or citing something improperly. With the Harvard president who lost her job, she failed to cite herself. So she had articles that she had written, but she didn't cite herself. So they considered that plagiarism. To me, that's a sticky thing. You could say, well, they should have let her slide, but maybe not. But anyway, that's accidental plagiarism. Mosaic plagiarism is mixing your own ideas with copied phrase or passages without citation. Self-plagiarism is what the Harvard president did, reusing your own previous work without permission or citation. But it also can be if you use your paper in this class and then you go and you use it in another class, that's plagiarism. And the university does not like that. There are consequences for that. Direct plagiarism, which we're pretty much familiar with, is copying text word to word without citation. These are types of plagiarism. Some of the consequences of plagiarism, there's academic consequences. Your assignment might get an F. There's academic probation. There is even being expelled. The reputation, loss of trust from colleagues, students, and academic community. There are also legal consequences. There can be, if you copyright, if you take someone's stuff and you sell it or use it for something else, then that's copyright infringement or a violation of that person's intellectual property rights. So this is why plagiarism is very important to understanding, and plagiarism is very important. So ways you can avoid plagiarism. I already mentioned the consequences, but how to avoid it. Cite sources properly, always give credit to the original authors and sources using the appropriate citation style. And the library has several different tools that you can use for to help you with citing things properly. Another thing, paraphrase and summarize correctly. Even when rephrasing someone's work, make sure to cite the source. Use quotation marks when using someone else's exact words. Put them in quotation marks and then cite it. Using plagiarism detection tools. Check your work and take Grammarly before you send it out. And it usually, Grammarly, you can do that plagiarism check and it will tell you where it's cited. A lot of times it's not where you actually got the information from. It may give you a site that specific, say, sentence or something might be in another work. So you may need to go and look at that at least, because what you cited might have been taken from the original source. So you have to go back to the original source. If it's, say, a article quoted something from a book, you have to go to the book and cite the book. In promoting academic integrity, be honest and transparent. Always ensure that the research and writing you submit is your own work. Another, ethical considerations in quantitative research. Informed consent. Participants must understand the purpose of the survey or test and how the data will be used and their rights. If you're going to publicize data, say you're going to present it at a conference or something, then the participants must know that their information is going to be used publicly. Confidentiality. Data should be anonymous or de-identified. Teachers and students should not be personally identifiable from the data. So if you're doing a study of the principles in, say, HISD, you can list the name of the principles, and you can't have the data so that it's identifiable, even if you don't list it. Like you can't say, I don't know, 6'4" African American who always wears a suit and works at whatever school. You can't do that, even though you don't use the name. If the person can be identified, then you can't do it. What would have to be done is assign people maybe a number or a code. And so when they complete it, everything has a code that the person can't be identified. Fairness and avoiding bias. Ensure questions are neutral and don't lead participants to a specific answer. Ensure that the sample is representative to avoid bias in results. Any questions on this? Okay. So ethical considerations and qualitative research. That was previously was ethical considerations and quantitative. So this is ethical considerations and qualitative. So as the same as in quantitative, you want to have informed consent. This is even more important because the questions in qualitative are open-ended questions, and people may share intimate or personal things, and you want to let them know that, inform them that if you share this, I may share it. So it is important that you do informed consent in both the quantitative, but more importantly in the qualitative. Then again, confidentiality, the same. Ensure participants that their identities and personal experiences will remain private. Respecting participants, be sensitive to emotions and reactions during interviews, especially when discussing personal or difficult topics, and avoiding harm. Protect the well-being of participants by avoiding distressing questions or situations. When you submit your things for the IRB, they will look at that. They will look at whether or not you have put in place something that would either protect the confidentiality, or if you say that it's going to be anonymous, they will look for that too. How is it that you have made it so that it's anonymous? Have you done the decoding and things like that? And then also avoiding harm. What is the level of harm? Most things are nothing in everyday life. You won't experience some things. You may experience some distress in looking at graphic images of violence on TV. And that's the study may have that included in their study, looking at violent images on TV. That's no more than what you would experience in everyday life. But the IRB will look at that and see if you have noted that. And if you have made a note of that to the participants that you're asking to do this study. Designing a research project. Now, this is more towards your assignment. Formulate a clear research question, choose appropriate research method, quantitative or qualitative, develop a data collection plan, whether you're going to use survey, interviews, observation, ensure ethical standards are met, the informed consent, confidentiality. And so I have included 2 questions that as an example. The quantitative example, how does classroom technology affect student engagement and test scores? And then the qualitative, how do students describe their experience, their learning experience with technology? So these are just some examples. And then this is again for your science fair research project, some key points for success. Share your research questions, ensure ethical practices as you design and implement your study. collect and analyze data effectively, either quantitatively or qualitative. Keep detailed notes of your process and finding. Begin reviewing existing literature related to your research question. And I probably should put that right under share your research question. Find studies that are similar to your proposed research and discuss how your research will contribute to the field. So in summary, and before I summarize, if there's any more, let's see, what time is it? I looked at my notes from Dr. Miller, and she said for about an hour. So we are actually right on schedule. So was there any questions before I do a little bit of this summary?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm going to ask everyone on these review key points. Do you understand the difference between quantitative and qualitative research methods? If someone asks you that, could you say yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I feel good then, because I put this together and I wanted to try and make it so that if this came up, you'd say yes. You could tell Dr. Miller, oh, I understand it. And I hope that it has been helpful, because that was what I wanted to do. Do you understand the ethical considerations and that they are crucial in both types of research? Anyone?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Good. Do you feel that you could design your experiment thoughtfully following ethical guidelines?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Well, we got through this then. So I feel good. I'm gonna stop sharing and I'm gonna stick on for a minute to see if there's any more questions. Was this helpful in any way?
Yes, it was very helpful. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, good, good. So we are right. We have 2 minutes.